there and welcome back to another My Hero Academia video. And today I want to talk about the latest episode to drop, Hired Gun, which continues to follow the solo adventures of Deku and All Might after Deku's defeat of Muscular. And also shows us a little bit of what the top three have been up to all of this time as well. It's a very action-packed episode this time, and so yeah. Before we begin, I'll say that I have read the manga, and I'm aware of any relevant future plot points and details, but for the purpose of these reviews, I really only like to talk about things from an anime-only perspective, so that anime-only fans can watch along and join in too. And also, I've forgotten a whole heap about the newer arcs, and so yeah. With all that being said, time to jump into things. So we start off the episode with yet another look at bloody Gran Torino. Honestly, I think the old fella should have died in the battle. You're telling me this geriatric old man is able to survive getting impaled by a dude with super strength, his fist entered his chest, and he just lays there bleeding out for who knows how long, but they were unable to save Sir Night-Eye. Sure. Also, I feel like it would have been a bit more of a reason for Deku to actually go it alone, rather than just, him feeling guilty that these fully trained heroes were injured in the line of duty. Losing a mentor would have been a good plot point for him, I think. It just would have made more sense for his character arc. And also, this scene reminded me that the old dude seems to have absolutely no pity for Shigaraki, which I find to be very unfair. You don't have to like him. You don't have to think he can be saved, but Jesus, man, have a bit of empathy and don't blame him for being abused and going insane, saying he's tarnishing his grandma's legacy. But that being said, he is kind of right. It's gotten to the point that killing him would probably be a mercy now. We then recap Deku heading out on his own, and the intro plays, and we get into the episode properly. And since we can't have a moment of peace and happiness, we start off the episode with a deeply uncomfortable scene where a completely innocent woman, whose only crime seems to be being a mutant-type quirk user, is chased down and beaten by 3 civilians with support gear while she begs for mercy, crying. Ugh, this was actually quite sad and deeply uncomfortable. And whilst Deku does come to the rescue, I'm not sure that if this was me, if I was Deku, that I wouldn't be able to stop myself stomping these dudes into next week. I guess if you have super strength like Deku's, you need a lot of self-control. But yet, I was made doubly uncomfortable and angry when they tell her that it's her fault they hurt her, as 1, she was running around at night, and 2, she was dressed like that. What? Dressed in what? Clothes? This sounds something verbatim that a men's rights activist would say when they hear about a woman getting assaulted at night. Oh, why were they walking around alone at night wearing that dress, those shorts, those heels, that crop top, etc.? Ugh. It's very clear to me what type of people those 3 dudes are. Kinda hope a villain turns up after Deku leaves. But hey, at least the part where Deku comforts her and tells her that he's gonna fix things to make sure that they return to how they were before is very wholesome. Especially when he uses Float to hold up her umbrella for her. Very cute. On the bright side, at least he hasn't gone all emo depressed, because, that would have been a bit dull. He still has his Deku spark, and I appreciate that they kept that in. And hey, her day just keeps looking up after this point, because then she gets to ride with All Might in his car to a shelter. This is like meeting Superman and having him fly you around. How many people can say that they've got driven around by All Might himself, huh? Also, it was nice to see some very wholesome vibes from All Might. He reveals that he made Deku's favourite meal, and he's even wrapped it up in a cute little cloth. How is he so wholesome? If Deku's dad ever actually comes back, he's gonna find that he's been almost completely replaced. And you know what? Good. All this shit that Deku's gone through and not even a phone call from Dad? Awkward. Deku then sits down to eat his food, in the rain no less. Oh, come on man, not in the rain. At least eat in a shelter or something. Anyway, the 5th user appears and starts talking about how all this reminds him of the old days, back before order was restored, when quirks ran wild and villains did whatever they wanted with no consequences. So is this just a description of how the world was before All Might came along? Large-scale crime waves? Death and destruction everywhere? Obviously, it couldn't have been as bad as it is now, otherwise society probably would have collapsed, but it would have to be pretty bad nonetheless. And so this poses the question, how much of a beast is All Might? Like, how could anyone ever come close? He brought crime to a record low and established an unprecedented era of peace, making it so that being a hero was just a standard career path instead of the path for the elite in society. What a Chad! Even after Deku gets to full power and recognition, I feel like he'll still always be in All Might's shadow. Cause yeah, Deku saved the world, but All Might did it first. We then see that the reason that the 2nd and 3rd users don't want to look at Deku in the Vestige realm was pretty much because they thought he was a little bitch. They figured that since they'd lived through so much war and violence, that they had the right to judge him. Because this kid, he still wants to try to save Shigaraki, even though to them, he's beyond saving. That All For One simply needs to die, Shigaraki included. So all in all, they think Deku's a bit soft, but the first user tells them that they gotta believe in him, and reminds them of when they found him in All for One's compound, how they rescued him, trusted him, and thus all of this was made possible. And honestly, second and third user do have a point here. I can understand why they'd be apprehensive. These dudes are hardcore soldier types. They gave their lives to fight All for One. And then this teenager appears talking about saving people instead of ending the threat once and for all. I too would be a bit annoyed. Imagine how many friends they lost to this psycho. But in the end, they do end up agreeing. And we get a pretty hype scene where all the Vestiges give a little speech to Deku about standing together to face the threat. And he keeps eating in the rain, getting water on his deep fried food. He's making it all soggy. Oh, this kid. And it's only here that we arrive at the title screen, almost halfway through the episode, and we get into the meat of things. We start off with Look at Endeavor, Genus, and Hawks fighting a bunch of low-tier villains. The villains have robbed a supermarket, and now they're face to face with Endeavor, who absolutely destroys one of these dudes who's using a nail gun support item to try and bring him down. And yeah, the dude gets one-shotted, whilst Best Genus uses his Batmobile to defeat the others. How unlucky could you be? You get busted out of prison, you go on your crime spree, and of all the heroes in Japan, of which there aren't that many due to the deaths and resignations and injuries, you find yourself up against not one, not two, but three of the top heroes of all time in Japan. Of all the heroes you could face, this is who you get. Oh, GG mate, GG. The heroes then talk about how once again, the jailbreakers had no connection to All for One. And I can understand that this would be very frustrating. They want to take down All for One before he has a chance to regroup and regain his full powers. But they have to wade through so much muck and filth to try and find somebody who might even have a scrap of knowledge as to where he is. It's also revealed in this scene that they're using Deku as bait, that they know All for One wants his quirk, and they're likely going to send out a high-powered soldier to capture him, which in turn would give them their chance to capture and interrogate a prisoner of their own who's had direct contact with All for One. Although it feels like this is the kind of plan that could go horribly wrong. I mean, they have to linger a little bit away from Deku. And so what if some randomly powerful villain did turn up? Or like a villain that could teleport away and he gets snatched up just like that. Imagine if All for One just decides, if I can't have the quirk, nobody can. And just puts a hit out on him, just kill him. And then all the top tier supervillains turn up at once to bring him down. It sounds like an accident just waiting to happen if you ask me. At the same time, they discuss how it seems like the reason that All for One needs Shigaraki's hatred is because he can't produce his own. Because in the end, he just views this as a game. It's a story for him, like his comic book. And then they discuss how they need to decide whether they should dedicate more resources to the search for All for One, because they do need to find him before it's game over. If he gets his full powers back, it's going to be very hard to stop him. But then the trade-off is whether they keep those resources maintaining public order and safety. Because on one hand, if he comes back, it is over. On the other hand, if they lose much more support, it will destroy hero society and public trust forever. So they pretty much just have to hope that All for One makes his move on Deku soon, so they can get some actual information. And luckily for them, it happens, and shit goes down. Deku's phone gets sniped out of his hand whilst he's using it, and somebody tosses a grenade at All Might's car when he's trying to speed to where Deku was last. So obviously, All Might's going to be no help here, although he never was really going to be any help, because all he can do is deliver lunch to Deku and take people to shelters. He can't fight anymore, can he? Although, I guess he would be still very tall, wouldn't he? He's probably actually quite strong just for a regular guy. Probably can't make tornadoes from his fists anymore and smash a whole city, but he'd still be pretty strong. But yeah, he gets hit with the grenade, although I very much doubt he even has a scratch. That car is probably built like the Batmobile. And here we meet the villain, Lady Nagant. And she tells Deku to stand down and not move or she'll shoot off his limbs. How friendly. And apparently this includes not turning his head, as she just starts blasting after he does that. But yeah, this is apparently the plan anyway, as Hawks expected that they would try to kidnap Deku, as they can't outright steal the quirk whilst All for One's recovering. He needs time to take over Shigaraki. And so, not only did Hawks know that this was going to happen, but he knew who would be coming after Deku. He knew it would be Lady Nagant. Dude's a genius, honestly. Imagine what he'd do with One for All. Villains wouldn't stand a chance. Insane tactical skills, killer instinct, a quirk that was already powerful. I mean, yeah, he'd end up dying young, and that's a shame, but still, he'd be so glorious in the meantime. Anyway, Deku then needs to make a choice. Does he run away like he's supposed to do in the plan, and therefore risk her killing the others when they turn up because he can't warn them through his communicator anymore? Or does he stay and fight? And honestly, the obvious answer is stay and fight, because, well, they can't be that far off, and I doubt she could actually subdue Deku that quickly anyway. So no matter what, he's eventually going to have help from the top three, even if Hawks is probably not ready to fight just yet. I mean, he can drive the Batmobile. Running away would simply get them ambushed and perhaps one of them would actually die. Anyway, I thought it was really cool that they actually made it clear that she's a really tough customer, as even with his super strength, his black whip and his danger sense, she's keeping Deku on his toes and her bullets actually overpowered him briefly. And on top of that, we learn in a flashback from Snipe that her quirk is literally only being able to shoot bullets out of her arms at a maximum range of 3 kilometers. She still has to aim and direct them, and she has to choose the bullet type she makes using her hair. So she's just a beast, an actual beast, and she's been in prison with no time to practice. She's just a relentless Chad. So yeah, she's pretty cool, not gonna lie. It's a shame she'll probably only last a couple of episodes, because this show always brings the coolest villains and then just leaves them in the dust and we're back to no face. And this lady's going to be no exception. But of course, the show can't resist having Deku also be acknowledged as a super specimen. And so to make him seem even more impressive, she openly says that this is the first time ever that somebody's dodged more than one bullet. Because of course it is. Of course Deku can do that. She then talks to Overhaul, who seems to be pretty much broken, and you know what? Good. The dude is a piece of shit who tortured a little girl and put his own pops in a hospital permanently. In the end, he got what he deserved, and I'm very glad that Shigaraki took his arms away. Anyway, she reflects on saving him from Tataris and then meeting All For One, who offered her a new quirk in exchange for going to hunt down Deku and bringing him to him. And we see that, like Hawks, All For One is also a master strategist. I mean, we knew this already, but it's always fun to see. He tells her to attack him when he has no way out, like in the rain, and cut him off from his allies because he knows there will be powerful heroes in the vicinity at all times. Separate them, then strike. I really love the tactical side of things. I mean, yeah, the big battles are fun and all, but when you get a monologue from a character revealing how this has always been their plan the whole time, it's so satisfying, even when it's a villain. And so he gives her a new quirk, Airwalk, and I gotta wonder, does that rule apply for getting a new quirk here? Like, is this gonna eventually kill her? Is it gonna hurt her? Or is it more that One For All had so much power that a normal person's body couldn't handle it unless you were quirkless and it became your true quirk? I think I'd probably want an explanation for this, but hell, maybe we'll get one next time, as in the preview, we're promised even more battle and some backstory. And so, yeah, that's the end of the episode and the end of the video. So I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.